Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a muted light over the small, unassuming town of Maplewood. Nestled between gently rolling hills and dense woodlands, it appeared idyllic, a postcard-perfect vision of America. The streets, lined with quaint shops and friendly faces, buzzed with the daily hum of lives intertwined. Yet, beneath this serene exterior, lay secrets waiting to unfold. It was on a chill autumn morning, as the leaves began to turn with hues of amber and crimson, that tragedy struck. A jogger, catching her breath at the edge of Walnut Grove Park, spotted something amiss. Her heart raced as she approached, drawn by an unusual dark shape nestled among the fallen leaves. What she uncovered changed Maplewood forever. A lifeless body, partially obscured under a blanket of foliage. The victim was identified as 27-year-old Lila Thornton, a beloved nurse at the local hospital. The shockwaves reverberated throughout the community, leaving behind a wake of disbelief. Lila was known for her kindness, her laughter echoing down the hospital halls as she cared for her patients. How could anyone harm her? As news spread, the town spiraled into fear and frustration. Who could commit such a heinous act amidst their tightly knit social fabric? Investigators descended upon the scene, meticulously combing for any trace of evidence that might lead them to Lila's killer. Every whisper, every glance exchanged at the police station hinted at a deeper story, one shrouded in the promise of revelations just waiting to unravel. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. The victim, Lila Thornton, wasn't just a name on the obituary page. She was a beacon of light in the lives of many. Born and raised in Maplewood, she was known the devoted daughter and a fiercely loyal friend. Growing up, she stood out among her peers not only for her academic achievements, but for her empathetic nature. As a nurse, she dedicated herself to helping others, earning respect and admiration from colleagues and patients alike. When officers first arrived at her home to inform her family of the tragedy, they were met with tears and disbelief. Lila had just celebrated her birthday a week prior, filled with laughter, cake, and her nearest and dearest friends. Her mother, Margaret, clutched a framed photo of Lila as a child, her face crumpling in pain as the gravity of the loss engulfed her. "We just spoke last night," she sobbed, recalling how Lila had suggested a mother-daughter day. She was so full of life, so happy. The void left by her daughter's absence was palpable, an ache that would linger for years. In the days that followed, more stories emerged, each a thread that wove the tapestry of Lila's life. Friends described spontaneous road trips, her infectious laugh, and her uncanny ability to lend an ear to those in distress. But there were hints of darker clouds on the horizon. Lila had recently received cryptic text messages and murmurs of a lingering relationship gone awry echoed among those who knew her best. As investigators combed through Lila's social media and chatted with neighbors, they uncovered a complex interplay of relationships, challenges, and hidden struggle. While her life seemed bright on the surface, shadows lingered just beneath a dichotomy that cast doubt on the people she had trusted most. What drove someone to take her life? And who among the familiar faces of Maplewood could transform from friend to foe? Crime scene. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves as investigators roped off Walnut Grove Park. The early morning fog clung to the ground, shrouding the site in an eerie stillness that seemed to echo the shock and sadness radiating from the town. Forensic teams moved with precision, their presence a stark contrast to the tranquility that typically blanketed the park, where children laughed and families picnicked. Detective Sarah Collins, a seasoned investigator with 20 years of experience, crouched near where Lila's body had been discovered. She felt a wave of sorrow wash over her, a familiar weight she had carried many times before. As she surveyed the scene, she noted the position of the body, partially hidden under a layer of leaves, as if an attempt had been made to conceal it. The meticulous placement suggested intent, a deliberate action by someone who understood the depths of their crime. Around the body, a scattering of items caught her eye. Lila's purse, slightly damaged but left open, revealing its contents: a wallet, a crumpled receipt, and a set of keys. There was also a pair of sneakers, twisted awkwardly as though she had fought against whatever had befallen her. Detective Collins cataloged each item, mentally piecing together the narrative that had led to this hideous moment. As the forensic team swabbed for potential DNA evidence and collected fingerprints, Sarah's instincts kicked in. She felt the need to connect with Lila, who had she encountered that day. He ran into at the hospital or on her job. No stone could be left unturned. Nearby, a thin, uneven trail through the underbrush hinted at a struggle. It would take detailed examination, and possibly the accounts of witnesses, to stitch together a timeline of events leading to Lila's last breaths. As shadows lengthened across the park, the troubling questions grew louder. What had happened in Walnut Grove on that fateful morning? Who could unravel the threads of trust that had spiraled into violence? The quest for answers was just beginning, and as every detective knew in their world, nothing was ever truly as it seemed. The early investigation, within hours of discovering Lila's body, the Maplewood Police Department was operating in overdrive. Detective Collins gathered her team in a cramped conference room, where a whiteboard hosted a collage of Lila's life. Her photographs, personal history, and a timeline of events leading up to her death. We need to establish a list of people who had contact with Lila in the last 24 hours, Sarah stated, pointing to an image of Lila at a charity event, smiling among colleagues, starved with her co-workers at the hospital, and her close friends. Let's also reach out to anyone who may have seen her around town. The more eyes we have, the better. Officers were dispatched immediately, setting interviews in motion. The air was electric with urgency. But Sarah knew the first hours after a crime were critical. Information gleaned now could slip through their fingers if not captured quickly. She focused on the timeline, dissecting Lila's movements on the day she was last seen. Meanwhile, Officer Jackson reviewed surveillance footage from the local convenience store that Lila frequented. As he played back the grainy images, his heart raced when he spotted her entering the store, blissfully unaware of her impending fate. She had left shortly afterward, her path now obscure. In the following days, as the investigation unfolded, rumors festered in the community. Whispers of a recent breakup with a long-term boyfriend, Kyle, made their rounds. Long discussions in the local diner hinted at tension between them, with patrons speculating on the nature of their relationship. Detective Collins dispatched a team to bring Kyle in for questioning. As they dug deeper, Their chaotic emotions of grief transformed into frustration. Friends and family, all sources of comfort, became potential subjects in a bizarre web of deceit. Did one of them harbor feelings of jealousy, rage, or betrayal? As they interviewed Lila's closest friends, the tension crackled in the air. Secrets lay shrouded in half-truths, leaving investigators to uncover the real Lila and the darker shadows enveloping her relationships. Each new lead felt like both a step forward and a dead end. But Sarah remained resolute. With every discovery, a clear picture of Lila's world emerged, filled with complexities and contradictions, and the pulse of the investigation quickened, edging ever closer to the truth. The dead ends. As days turned into weeks, the frenzy surrounding Lila's murder began to wane. Flowers that had adorned her makeshift memorial at Walnut Grove Park wilted, and the once bustling streets of Maplewood fell silent under the weight of uncertainty. Hopes of quick leads dwindled, replaced by frustration as investigators hit multiple dead ends. Detective Collins reviewed the evidence logs. Her meticulously kept notes was filled with promising leads that dissolved like morning mist. Kyle, Lila's boyfriend, had an alibi confirmed by friends, while interviews with coworkers yielded little more than polite recollections of a dedicated nurse. No significant contradictions arose, just a steady stream of heartwarming anecdotes that did little to quell the growing unease. One evening, Sarah stood at her desk, the hum of overhead lights casting a sterile glow. A sliding door in the break room revealed stacks of still uninterviewed potential witnesses, but they all fell short. Their accounts repeated what she already knew. With each passing day, the darkness of the case seeped deeper into her thoughts, reigniting her fears of a case that could grow cold, leaving Lila's memory trapped in a time of anguish. Then came an unexpected turn. An unnamed tip from a concerned citizen, fraught with urgency, turned her attention to a local mechanic known for his volatile behavior. Victor, a man whose history with substance abuse painted him as a possible person of interest, had been spotted in the vicinity of the park on the day of Lila's death. With renewed resolve, Detective Collins coordinated a meeting with Victor. However, the excitement soon transformed into disappointment when he coolly dismissed the allegations as baseless rumors. "I was fixing the transmission on the truck that day," he asserted, eyes averting hers. A quick background check confirmed he was indeed at the auto chauffeur's alibi was solid. By the end of the week, Collins found herself staring down yet another dead end. Lila's case, once full of potential leads and layered stories, was now shrouded in the shadows of doubt and misdirection. Each rejection felt like a personal failure, a blow to the urgency she carried for Lila and her grieving family. With the entire town holding their breath, Sarah knew she needed to dig deeper, to peel back the layers until she found the core of betrayal hidden beneath the surface. Time was not on her side, and Lila deserved justice. A break in the case. When the morning sun broke through the treetops of Maplewood, it brought with it a renewed sense of purpose for Detective Sarah Collins. Her nights had been restless, filled with vivid dreams of the case that seemed to offer no answers. But as she arrived at the police station, a single slip of paper on her desk caught her eye. A handwritten note from an anonymous source. Lila was not who she seemed. Look at her past. The words hung heavily in the air, pregnant with meaning and fraught with implications. Sarah's heart raced. This could be the lifeline she so desperately needed. The message gave her direction she needed to revisit Lila's past and connect the dots that may have been overlooked. Gathering a team, Sarah shared the note, and it quickly delved into Lila's earlier life. They began with her high school years, reaching out to former classmates, and quickly uncovered some buried secrets. There were whispers of a tumultuous teenage life, punctuated by a series of unexplained absences, and a brief but troubling encounter with the law. Among those who responded was Jade Simmons, Lila's childhood friend, who agreed to meet. In a quiet coffee shop, her voice trembled as she recounted memories Lila had shared. "I remember her telling me once about an old friend from high school. She cut ties with after some nasty fights," Jade said, casting anxious glances around the cafe. "I always saw it was strange." Sarah's pulse quick. "Do you remember the person's name?" "Yeah, it was Colton." "Colton, right," Jade replied, hesitating as she spoke, as though the name alone carried the weight of untold complications. Armed with this new lead, Collins initiated a search for Colton, only to find his name hovered near the edges of more alarming reports past arrests involving violence and drug-related offenses. With a sense of urgency, the detective sought to locate him, fueling the flame of her relentless pursuit for the truth. The pieces were beginning to fit, but the questions multiplied. What had transpired between Lila and Colton that led to severed ties? Why did Lila never mention him again? The past seemed to awaken a haunting narrative of betrayal and obscured history. It was a break in the case, but it also raised more troubling possibilities, deepening the mystery surrounding Lila's life and the tragedy that had befallen her. Just as they seemed to inch closer to answers, the darkness seemed to pulse with renewed strength each revelation, bringing them closer to the demarcation of innocence lost and the insidious motives lurking in the shadow. The suspect, with the name Colton Wright echoing in Detective Sarah Collins' mind, the search for him intensified. Investigators scoured public records, piecing together a profile that unveiled a man with a troubled history. Colton had been in and out of jail, his chaotic lifestyle punctuated by drug charges and altercations that left him with a reputation of volatility. He had vanished from Maplewood several years prior, but had recently resurfaced in a nearby town, a mere 30 miles from where Lila had been found. As Sarah reviewed his criminal record, a picture began to emerge of a man who was unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Furtive glances from the community suggested that Colton had not changed. Tales swirled around town of him engaging in aggressive behavior and dubious dealing. It wasn't long before the pieces began to slot into place, leading investigators to connect him to Lila, the childhood friend whose shadow had loomed over her life. The following day, Detective Collins arranged for a surveillance detail near a local bar where Colton was reported to frequent. As dusk fell, the tension thickened in the air, weaving through the cool evening. It was there, watching from a distance, that Sarah finally caught a glimpse of him. Colton's unkempt hair and weary eyes told a story of hardship, but a steely glint surfaced as he exchanged banter with some individuals outside the bar. As the police prepared to approach him, Sarah felt a tight knot of apprehension in her stomach. She couldn't help but imagine the questions swirling in Colton's mind. What would he say? Would he deny knowing Lila? Or would the truth spill out like a cracked death? An officer walked over to introduce themselves, and the ensuing conversation was tense. Colton put on a facade of indifference, especially when questioned about Lila. "She was just a girl I used to know," he shrugged. But the way his eyes darted betrayed him. "You seem to know a lot about her for someone who just used to know her." Sarah interjected, her gaze steady. "People don't end up dead for no reason, Colton. Were you involved?" A flash of anger crossed his face, then melted into a sullen resignation. "I didn't hurt her. I told you. She got mixed up with the wrong crowd." But the seed of suspicion had been planted. His defensiveness, the stark truth in his tone, and his clear history prompted a deeper investigation into their past. What roles had he played in Lila's life during those formative years? And what secrets lingered in their shared history? With Colton now firmly in their sights, Sarah felt the momentum building, a visceral feeling that this was a critical turning point. The darkness they had been plowing through was becoming illuminating, albeit unsettling. The imprint of his presence loomed large, suggesting that Lila's murder could have roots intertwined with both love and betrayal, a tempestuous cocktail that could lead to deadly consequence. The trial. The courtroom was silent, save for the sound of shuffling papers and faint whispers rippling through the spectators. Lila Thornton's murder trial had finally commenced, drawing a mix of emotions from the community that had been on edge since her tragic death. Lila's family sat at the front, their faces etched with sorrow, while on the opposite side, Colton Wright sat stoically, a picture of reluctant defiance. Detective Sarah Collins admired their strength as they waited for justice to be served. She had worked relentlessly to gather evidence over the months, piecing together the story of Lila's life and the dark connections that had led to her untimely demise. Prosecution team, led by the formidable district attorney Helen McCarthy, was determined to present a case that would confirm Colton's guilt. As the trial unfolded, evidence was methodically laid before the jury. Phone records revealed a series of irate messages exchanged between Lila and Colton a week before her murder, replete with accusations and threats. Witnesses recounted their recollections of seeing the two together at the local bar, where tensions bubbled over into altercations witnessed by many. Then came the pièce de résistance, evidence collected from the crime scene that matched samples taken from Colton. Every word that resonated in the courtroom seemed to sink deeper into the hearts of those present. Lila's mother clenched her hands tightly, stifling tears as the grisly details of the murder were divulged. She recalled that final birthday celebration with Lila, when her daughter had exuded happiness that now felt achingly bittersweet. The defense aimed to dismantle the prosecution's narrative, painting a picture of a troubled man who had risen above his past. Colton's lawyer presented him not as a monster, but as a deeply flawed individual who had turned his life around, suggesting that if there was a crime, it was merely the result of a heated argument gone wrong. He called into question Lila's character, insinuating there were layers of complexity that the jury needed to understand. As the days wore on, Sarah and the prosecution team experienced a turbulent blend of hope and anxiety. The stakes were palpable. They knew a verdict to bring resolution or continued anguish to Lila's family. The pressure mounted, and Attorney McCarthy delivered a final impassioned plea, urging jurors to consider Lila's boisterous laughter she had brought to the lives around her, the dreams she had that were emphatically cut short. When the jury adjourned to deliberate, an electric silence enveloped the courtroom. Minutes stretched into hours, and the collective breath-holding of the crowd felt unbearable. Finally, as they filed back in, the weight of expectation could be felt across the room. "Verdict?" the judge asked, his voice steady amidst the tension. "Guilty of second-degree murder," the foreman announced, and the words fell like thunder, reverberating through Sarah as relief washed over her, tempered by the heaviness of the outcome. Lila had been granted a measure of justice, but her absence would forever leave an indelible mark. As Colton was led away in handcuffs, a sense of closure began to settle over the courtroom, albeit bittersweet. The echoes of laughter once filled with life in Maplewood had been replaced with shadows. But now, those shadows seemed to recede just a little. The road ahead would be challenging for those Lila left behind. Yet the victory was not just for her, it was a call to remember a vibrant spirit, extinguished too soon, and a reflection on the fragility of trust. The first steps toward healing had begun, and they would not forget the lessons learned through loss. The aftermath. In the wake of the trial, Maplewood began to breathe again, though the scars from Lila's tragic death ran deep. With Colton Wright's conviction, a collective sigh of relief swept through the town, yet a palpable sadness lingered. The ripple effects of the crime had touched everyone, leaving the community grappling with a chilling sense of vulnerability that they had never known. Lila's family. Each day was a testament to the immense void left behind. Margaret Thornton strived to honor her daughter's memory, while simultaneously trying to navigate the raw ache of her loss. She organized memorial events, inviting townsfolk to come together in Lila's name. Each gathering served as a beacon of hope amid sorrow, allowing those touched by Lila's warmth to share their stories. To keep her spirit alive, Detective Sarah Collins, too, felt the weight of the aftermath. Although the trial had provided closure in terms of justice, unresolved emotions haunted her. The case had taken a toll on her professionally and personally. It had reignited a commitment to protect others from the oppressive grasp of violence that had taken Lila's life. She became involved in local outreach programs focused on educating young adults about healthy relationships, aiming to prevent future tragedies. However, not everyone felt closure. In the dusty corners of coffee shops and bars, whispers of discontent began to emerge. Some townsfolk questioned the evidence that had led to Colton's conviction, hinting at potential discrepancies in the investigation's timeline. Is he really guilty? Or is he just a convenient scapegoat? They speculate. The doubts simmered beneath the surface, conflicting alongside the prevailing narrative of justice served. As months passed, the changing seasons marked both healing and haunting reminders of what had been lost. Sarah felt a growing urgency to silence the murmurs. The case had been thorough, documented meticulously, yet she recognized that people often needed more than just facts. They craved a personal connection to help them process complex emotions. She organized a town hall meeting, inviting residents to air out their fears and frustrations openly. That evening, the community gathered in the warmth of the town hall, an intimate yet charged atmosphere. Responses varied from heartfelt tributes to Lila and the pain of loss to heated exchanges about justice and accountability. As Sarah stood before the crowd, she felt a mosaic of emotions weaving together a fabric of pain, hope, and resilience. "We may have won a legal battle," she began softly, "but the fight for understanding and healing continues. We owe it to Lila, and we owe it to each other. Let's not let her story fade away. Let's ensure her legacy is one of compassion, vigilance, and connection." The dialogue continued well into the night, echoing a collective desire to bring about change. People began to share their stories, support each other, and rekindle connections that had faded amid the tumult. Lila's death had starkly illuminated the fragility of life, bringing about a renewed commitment to community. Understanding and a unified future in the days that followed. As the leaves turned their vibrant colors once again, Maplewood began to heal, not just from the loss of a beloved nurse, but from the profound lessons etched in the hearts of its people. And while the absence of Lila remained a haunting echo, the community emerged stronger, refusing to forget the light she had shared with them all. Reflection. In the months that followed the conviction of Colton Wright, Detective Sarah Collins found herself frequently reflecting on Lila Thornton's life and the reverberations of her untimely death. The case had peeled back the layers of the Maplewood community, exposing both their vulnerabilities and their inherent strength. With every anniversary of Lila's birthday, the town held a vigil, lighting candles that flickered against the evening sky, serving as luminous reminders of the light she brought into the world. Standing at one such vigil, with friends and family gathered around, Sarah felt the weight of gratitude and sorrow intertwined. Conversations flowed freely, rich with memories of Lila laughter, her kindness, and shared struggles of grief that transformed into resilience. The outpouring of compassion reminded her of the importance of community in weathering the storms of life. As Sarah looked at the candles, their flames dancing gently in the night, she recognized the strength that arose from love and loss. The vigilance needed to safeguard one another became palpable. Each face before her embodied a thread woven into the fabric of their lives, their joint commitment to ensure that love and compassion could prevail even in the darkest of time.